Hello there, watching L24 special coverage streaming live from the capital Algiers. Tonight's focus will be on the latest developments in Palestine, precisely Gaza Strip, where Zionist military has struck the besieged Gaza following a day of rocket fire from the Palestinian territory and from Lebanon in reaction to the Zionist back-to-back military incursions into Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holy site. A series of explosions were heard in Gaza late on Thursday, as it was not immediately clear what was targeted. The attacks came shortly after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised a strong response to rockets fired at the Zionist entity. This latest shelling came after Zionist troops drew widespread condemnation from around the region, targeting worshippers twice on Wednesday and Tuesday inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. And to discuss the situation in Gaza Strip right now and what is happening, I'm joined live with the writer, journalist Tariq Abu Azoum, who will join us later, and Khattab, journalist from Gaza. Also, Mr. Khaymer Abu Saada, professor and chairman of the Department of Political Science at Azhar University in Gaza. Also with professor and media activist Muti' Abu Masbah from Gaza also. Now, before we delve into our discussion, gentlemen, thank you ever so much for accepting the invitation to our debate. A short break and we start our discussion. So, as we delve into our discussion, the latest information from Gaza indicated that the bombing is still occurring at this late hour. And this escalation comes in the aftermath of the Zionist police attacks on the peaceful Palestinian worshippers at Al-Aqsa Mosque in the occupied Al-Quds. Mr. Abu Masbah, first of all, as simple as it is seen now, I believe this escalation can we say, was it explained and by the newly elected Zionist Prime Minister Netanyahu precisely at this time, Ramadan?
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me. Indeed, it has become a matter of fact that what is going on now, these moments in Gaza Strip is not happening or taking place far away from the ongoing and the continuous Israeli terrorism and the Israeli escalation happening in Al-Aqsa Mosque and Al-Aqsa Yards against the Palestinian people there. The Jerusalemites, as you know, as you have mentioned, that the Palestinians there have been targeted by the Israeli occupation forces. The whole world has witnessed how the Palestinian people have been suppressed and attacked and denied their legitimate right to practice and to have or to do their prayers and to perform their worship in Al-Aqsa Mosque, especially in this holy month. So we are in front of continuous and a wide Israeli escalation and a new wave of the Israeli terrorism targeting the Palestinian people across all Palestinian territories. This is on one hand. On the other hand, it seems, and I think it has also become apparent and obvious for everyone that the Israeli occupation government and the Israeli occupation the political elites and the Israeli occupation try to export their political deadlock and political crisis at the expense of the Palestinian people. They are trying to come up with a new solution for their continuous political crisis. On the Palestinian or using the Palestinian blood by shedding the blood of the Palestinian people. So it seems that we are in front of a new round of escalation, which is systemically and deliberately targeting the Palestinian people and practiced against the Palestinian people in order to gain political interest to serve the interest of the Israeli occupation forces. Till this moment, as you have mentioned, that we don't have any kind of casualties or martyrs among the Palestinian people in Gaza, but it's highly expected to have a large number of the Palestinian casualties and Palestinian martyrs if these airstrikes continued against the Palestinian the Palestinian different areas and several areas in Gaza Strip, taking into consideration that Gaza Strip is the most densely populated area worldwide. So we are in front of deliberate aggression and wide aggression targeting the Palestinian people. And this actually should put the whole world in front of its responsibility to enforce the Israeli occupation, to stop its aggression against the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much for the given points. Coming to you, Mr. Mkhaymer Abu Saada. In the same line of thought, the Zionist forces, led by the extremist right-wing government Netanyahu, is continuing its barbaric aggression against the defenseless Palestinian people, especially in this holy fasting month of Ramadan. Why do you think the Zionist forces intensify their attacks in this holy month?
Many thanks for inviting me to be part of this program. And let me alert you and alert the people who are watching this program that there were efforts by the US and by other Arab countries like Egypt and Jordan to try to de-escalate the situation during the month of Ramadan. But unfortunately, Israel has not respected its commitment to the so-called Sharm el-Sheikh and Al-Aqaba understandings with the Palestinian Authority, with the sponsorship, as I mentioned, of the US, Egypt, and Jordan. The Israeli attack against against Muslim worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque over the past 2 nights was unacceptable at all. It's a normal thing that Muslims during the month of Ramadan, they go worship at night and they stay late at night, and the Israeli attack against worshippers and arresting many of them, attacking Palestinian women, children, and also elderly was instigated this current cycle of violence, which resulted in rocket attacks from Gaza by the Palestinian resistance against Israel to try to retaliate against this Israeli unacceptable measures against the Palestinians. It seems to be that things have gotten out of control today as a result of the rockets which were launched against Israel from South Lebanon, and Israel decided to retaliate against Gaza, against the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, holding Hamas and other Palestinian groups accountable for the rockets that were launched from Gaza over the past 2 days, and also for the rockets that were launched from Lebanon this morning. It seems to me that Israel finds it that the weakest point is to attack Gaza, because at the end of the day that Israel can take a number of rockets from Gaza against Israeli towns and villages. But at the end of the day, that let me say that the essence of the problem is the Israeli occupation, which has been going on for 55 years now. The Israeli occupation of Palestinian land, West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Israeli aggression against the Palestinians since the beginning of this year, 2023. More than 90 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank alone. On average, 1 Palestinian was killed on daily basis. Also, Israeli storming of Al-Aqsa Mosque and desecrating the third holiest shrine in Islam. All of these Israeli measures have provoked the Palestinians. There is a lot of anger, a lot of frustration among the Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank, Gaza, all over Palestine, as a result of this Israeli aggression against Muslim holy site in Al-Quds.
Very good indeed. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, in the same line of thought and in the same track, do you believe that what is happening now in Palestine, precisely now in Gaza, was planned by Netanyahu to put the rage over, and especially in this holy month Ramadan? They are trying to prove something. They are trying to challenge not only Palestine, but rather the whole Muslim community. What are you saying about this?
Yeah, as the audience, I would like to thank you for hosting me, and also thank your television for covering the situation in the Gaza Strip and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Yeah, right now the Israeli occupation's war plans are striking on the Gaza Strip, causing fear among women and children, and causing damage to several buildings, including a house that collapsed in eastern Gaza City due to the Israeli occupation's war jets bombing. According to local media sources in Gaza, the mediators, Egypt, the UN, and Qatar were informed by the Israeli occupation that it's not intending to expand its aggression on the Gaza Strip. And its airstrikes on Gaza tonight were a response to firing rockets from Gaza and the Israeli occupations on Wednesday. I don't think that Hamas or the Israeli occupations are currently interested in a long-lasting war in Gaza City, but Hamas fighters and other Palestinian factions confirmed that they will defend their land and their people. I believe that the Arab states, which keeps diplomatic ties with the Israeli occupation, must immediately sever these ties in a protest against the occupation's violations in the Al-Aqsa Mosque and against our people in the Palestinian territories.
Very good indeed. Coming to Mr. Moti' Abu Masbah, before this escalation already happened, a lot of countries have tried to de-escalate the tension between Palestinians and the Zionist entity, but here it is. The escalation is already started, and we can say the war is already started. So, are we witnessing a beginning of long-lasting war in the occupied territories?
First of all, let me clarify that this kind of escalation that targets the whole Palestinian territories actually is the practical translation of having such a racist and a hardline right-wing government in the Israeli occupation. It's the normal result of having this government because it sees nothing but to attack the Palestinian people. They even all ministers included in this government actually deny the existence even of the Palestinian people. They deny every right of the Palestinian people, even the right to exist on this land. So they would seize every opportunity to attack the Palestinian people and to expel the Palestinian people. And the whole thing this government is totally concerned about is how to gain and buy more time to attack the Palestinian people, to occupy and steal more Palestinian land, and to expel more Palestinian people out of their properties, out of their lands and of their houses. So we are in front of a comprehensive and a thorough Israeli terrorism practice left, right, and center. And I think they have especially this current government, Israeli government, has nothing to promote or nothing to do with its community, the right-wing community, inside the Israeli occupation, but to keep persecuting the Palestinian people and killing the Palestinian people and shedding the blood of the Palestinian people. So whether these attacks were in Gaza or in Jerusalem or in the West Bank, it comes in the same context of the practical translation of the agendas and the attitude, the racist attitude that this government has and holds against the Palestinian people. So it's highly expected. And as you have mentioned, as Dr. Mukhaymar Abu Saada has just mentioned, that till this moment, since the beginning of this year, 2023, we have more than 92 Palestinians have been killed so far. So this actually reveals how this year is going to be bloody for the Palestinian people. This reveals the brutality, the unprecedented brutality of the Israeli occupation. So what is going on nowadays is unprecedented when it comes to the Palestinian people, and what is waiting for the Palestinians, what are the Palestinians are waiting for from having such a current government. And actually, what is happening nowadays and all this kind of terrorism actually meets the general attitude of the Israeli community itself, because the Israeli community is the community that elected this government and voted for this government. So it's totally would be satisfied. It would be satisfied. This community would be satisfied with having this kind of these crimes and this brutality practiced against the Palestinian people.
Quite understood. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, just now you are in Palestine and you are a Palestinian living in Gaza. So what kind of steps and measures should be taken right now to face this aggression?
I agree with you that the Zionist entity trying to deviate the attentions away from its internal instability by attacking Gaza. According to my understanding, Hamas is studying the Israeli reality very well. Hamas, which allowed firing rockets at Israel during the past 2 days, knows very well that Passover has begun and Israel is not interested in any escalation in Gaza for fear of first, the increase in internal confrontations in Israel, and second, for fear of sabotaging the holiday and pushing the Israelis to go to shuttles. It seems that Israel is not interested in any escalation, despite the fact that Netanyahu is living in an internal crisis, and the military confrontations may be in light of the current crisis he is facing with the Minister of Defense and judicial reforms that may rock the government coalition. Israel is not ready at the level of the internal front to enter into any confrontation with Gaza. Israel focuses on the West Bank and ending the armed resistance there instead of entering into a war with Gaza that ends with a truce and keeps Hamas in Gaza, and nothing will change.
Quite interesting. Now let's try to move on to another point to be discussed earlier. We had a phone call with the Palestinian ambassador to Algiers, Mr. Faiz Abu Aita, asking about what should be done and how to stop this continuous aggression against Palestinian people and their sanctities, which belong to all Muslims. And he has said the following.
A continuous, barbaric attack from the right-wing extremist government, which is made up of extremists within the Zionist entity. They therefore target the existence of the Palestinian people and its sanctities, and they want to impose a fait accompli on the Arab and Islamic nation by ending the Islamic, Palestinian and Arab existence in this holy city. But this is impossible. They were upset with seeing, during this sacred month of Ramadan, tens of thousands of Palestinians praying and worshipping in a clear message that this holy and blessed mosque belongs to the Islamic and Arab nation, and the Palestinian people could never relinquish it, and could never allow the evil schemes of the government of Netanyahu and Ben Gvir to be successful, whatever the price.
Now, based on the words of the ambassador Faiz Abu Aita to Algiers, according to you, Mr. Muti', isn't it high time for the Arab leaders and nations who close their ranks against the Zionists and support Palestinians in a better manner, not just only by words and saying this is a condemnation?
Indeed, yes. We can say that. I think it's very important to understand that the Israeli occupation, for decades, has been exploiting the weakness of the Arab regimes and trying to divide the Arab regimes and trying to spread between the Palestinian people and the Arab countries and the Arab people in order to attack the Palestinian people and in order to liquidate the Palestinian cause. So this is the strategy that the Israeli occupation is using and is having. The first thing that we have to do in front of this kind of the thorough and comprehensive aggression targeting the Palestinian people is to reassure that the Palestinian cause is still the central issue and the central cause of Arab people and Muslim nation. And the Palestinian people today, yes, they are fighting the Israeli occupation, but they should never be fighting the Israeli occupation alone. Israel should realize that the Palestinian people is fighting, and that people, the Palestinian people, is totally backed and supported by the Arab regimes and Arab countries. Today, I think that it would be a disgrace for Arab regimes to keep normalization ties and agreements with the Israeli occupation at the time the Israeli occupation is still killing the Palestinian people and suppressing the Palestinian people, and every day on a daily matter and a recurring matter, Israel kills the Palestinian people and suppress the Palestinian people and occupy more Palestinian lands. So I think the only thing and the first thing and the most important thing that the Arab regimes should do is to stop the normalization agreement and to stand up for their responsibility, for moral responsibility that Israel is enforced and obliged to stop its aggression against the Palestinian people, because it's not acceptable for the Palestinian people to keep under the ongoing Israeli aggression and the ongoing Israeli killing, while the all Arab regimes are standing in silence. What is going on should be a wake-up call, should represent a wake-up call for Arab regimes that what is happening nowadays is not about the Palestinian people, it's about all Arab countries and Arab regimes. Israel would never respect at all or would never be committed to its obligations with any Arab regimes. And we are witnessing and we are experiencing nowadays how the Israeli occupation is eluding and is evading its responsibilities and try to overcome any kind of normalization. So I think these moments and nowadays what we are witnessing nowadays should be a turning point regarding the normalization agreements and regarding any ties with the Israeli occupation, because no one can deny that these agreements and these normalization ties are just a kind of a stab in the back of the Palestinian people. And Israel understands clearly that this kind of agreements and ties is a green line for the Israeli occupation forces to keep committing its crimes against the Palestinian people. This on one hand. On the other hand, I think on the level of the Palestinian people, the first thing that they can do or they have to do is to reunite themselves and to regain their unity and to end the division between the Palestinian factions, because the Israeli occupation doesn't distinguish between a Palestinian and another Palestinian. All Palestinian people across all Palestinian territories are under the Israeli attacks, under the Israeli persecution, and under the Israeli aggression.
Quietly understood, Mr. Moteh. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, many countries and institutions have denounced the Zionist attacks against the holy places in Palestine. Don't you think it is time now to take concrete measures, considering that the Palestinian cause remain ignored by all the world countries? I don't know what they are trying to prove, saying that they are standing with those countries that are in need, like now Ukraine, but when it comes to Palestine, they are trying to ignore the cause.
Yeah, I am sorry to say that these countries are only denouncing the Zionist attacks against our holy places and against our people in Palestine. But on the ground, they are not taking any action against the occupation. Our people and our factions have been always calling on these countries and institutions to take actions and measures against the occupation, but unfortunately they do nothing to protect us.
Quite understood. Coming to you, Mr. Moteh, now it's obvious that the Zionist entity is desperately trying to deviate the attention from its internal instability by attacking Gaza. To what extent do you think its desperate move has been successful so far now, by starting the first day of rockets has been shot?
Yes, it's known that it's not bizarre for the Israeli occupation to attempt to export its internal problems and internal crises, and trying to come up with solutions for these crises at the expense of the Palestinian people, on the backs of the Palestinian people. Whenever the Israeli occupation, over the history of over the last decades, when the Israeli occupation was experiencing any kind of political crisis and political deadlock, it used to try to attack the Palestinian people or wage a new aggression against Gaza Strip or escalate against the Palestinian people in order to draw the attention away from the internal dispute. But I think, in my opinion, that what is happening nowadays inside the Israeli community is unprecedented. Even if the notorious Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who leads the current government tries and attempts to evade the internal situation and the internal dispute by attacking Gaza or waging a new aggression against Gaza, I think it would be very clear for the so-called opposition that is trying to avoid the internal situation by running forward, by gaining and buying more time at the expense of the Palestinian people. I think it's not as easy as it was supposed to be for Netanyahu, just to try to find a solution for his internal political crisis at the expense of the Palestinian people. This would never happen, and the Palestinian people would never accept for themselves to be a scapegoat for the Israeli occupation government to solve its internal dispute and internal problems at the expense of the Palestinian people. And the Palestinian people would never accept to pay the price of those political disputes and the problems from their blood and from their properties, from their civilians. So I think that we are in front of we are as Palestinians nowadays standing on a serious crossroad, and I think that the future is holding a lot of developments that would change the general equation between the Palestinian people and the Israeli occupation. And by the way, the Israeli occupation realizes this very clearly, that what is happening nowadays is unprecedented, and any choice, any step that it would take against the Palestinian people should be rethinked twice before it was taken. That's it.
Quite understood. Thank you so much for the point you have raised, Mr. Moutir. Now, we have Mustafa Rajab with us on a phone call, who is a chairman of the Egyptian Association in Europe from Egypt. Mr. Mustafa, just as a simple question, the Zionist entity stopped the planned transport of fuel into Gaza shortly before it launched its attack, just a couple hours before, crippling the territory's lone power plant and reducing the electricity supply to about 4 hours per day, thus reducing the chances to save the injured, given that hospitals need electricity power based on this. Is there a risk of a further escalation of violence?
Oh, of course, there is a huge risk. I'm listening to all the analysis that's explaining why this happening. The Israeli is trying to pull the Israeli attention people into a different conflict because they are having a lot of problems, internal problems. But we're really not interested in that. I know there will be escalation. I know they will do a lot worse because nothing has happening for the last couple of days, apart from condemnation and some phone calls here and there. But we have issued a press release to Human Rights Watch today, calling on them to account and hold the Israeli forces accountable for all this war crime that they are committing against civilians, against people who are practicing religion, people who are worshiping, people unarmed. And all this, the Israeli forces have to be held accountable, and Netanyahu especially. All this got to happen now. And we're also issuing another press release calling on all the international communities to get together and demonstrate around all the Israeli embassies around the world and show them that there is the people power going to take action. The Israelis got to understand that they are breeding terrorism. They're fighting terrorism, the whole world saying we fight terrorism, but they are breeding terrorism. When you oppress people as much as that, and people see that there is nobody supporting them, there is nobody standing up for them, what are you expecting? Why are you expecting these people how they should behave? They bow down and let everything go? Of course not. This is a very serious, very dangerous situation. The Israelis are playing with fire. And then you find that other people around the world will suffer as a result of that. And this is not acceptable. And the Israeli will do a lot more because there's nobody doing anything against their action. This is the most dangerous thing. I mean, I haven't seen any action from any Arab countries. I haven't seen any action from the superpowers.
I'm sorry to cut your train of thought,
and the Israelis just they carry on the aggression against unarmed people, civilians who are worshipping, doing nothing. and they go into the mosque and with their shoes and no respect, and the intimidating people. This action is so serious, it's so dangerous.
So I'm sorry to cut your train of thought, Mr. Rajab, but Egypt's president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, said he was talking around the clock with both sides to ease the situation. Now, can we say, is mediation possible at this stage after the launching of these rockets?
You see, mediation happens when people having a conflict. What do you mediate with? People are walking into the mosque with their shoes, firing and throwing bombs and doing all this. You do mediation between people who are having a conflict together. And this is unacceptable. He should call on Israeli people to withdraw and allow people to worship and apologize and pay for what they've done. We're sick of all this soft action. There's got to be some action to keep the pride of the Palestinian people, to keep the pride of the Muslim people. This is not the action I want to see. I want to see a much stronger action. And one president is not enough. Where are the rest? Where is the rest of the Arab countries? Where are the rest of the Muslim countries? That's why I'm going beyond that. I'm calling on the international communities. There is a huge community, Palestinian community in the UK, all over the world. There is Algerian, there is Tunisian, there is Moroccan, there is Egyptians, all over the world. I mean, when you see a demo happening in London, you will find sometimes over 1 million people marching to the Israeli embassy, and you see the British police are really panicking and trying to control the situation. And most of the time it goes out of hand, you see, because people are angry, and this is the result of this action happening in Palestine. You see, I'd like to call it Palestine. I don't like to call it Israel, because this is the original name. This is the people rights, the Palestinian people. Those people came and occupied the land, and they're doing the hell with everything. They have no respect for nothing. No respect for. Before they do that, have they considered the action of the Egyptian government? Have they considered the action of any other government? They just do what they like, because the action that is done against their act is not strong enough, is not good enough. As I said, they're having top VIP treatment all over the Arab world now. This is unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, now you are in Gaza. Are you still hearing the bombing?
Yeah, right now the Israeli occupations war plans are striking on the Gaza Strip, causing fear among women and children, causing damage to several buildings, including a house that collapsed. There is a lot of bombing here, yeah.
Coming to you, Mr. Motoya, you are also in Gaza. Do you think that the latest aggression perpetrated against the innocent Palestinian people is likely to push the normalizing countries to reconsider their relations with this Zionist entity? In terms likewise, Emirates as well, Morocco?
Well, I think that we are still far away from having such a decision or a step. Because it seems that the Israeli occupation is totally convinced that it can do whatever it wants against the Palestinian people without being held accountable or responsible, or without being even asked for any kind of action taken against the Palestinian people. Unfortunately, we are witnessing nowadays how the United Arab Emirates and the normalizing regimes are supporting the Israeli occupation and assisting the Israeli occupation, and through the press release and the statements issued by those countries and those regimes that they denounce the Palestinian reaction to the Israeli aggression and the Israeli attacks against the Palestinian worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is actually a matter of shame. This is actually disgraceful for those countries to have such a decision and a position or such a stance against the Palestinian people, to stand on the Israeli side against the Palestinian people, which is on a daily basis, day and night, are being attacked and oppressed by the Israeli occupation forces. It's a matter of it's shameful for them just at the same moment that the whole free people worldwide supporting the Palestinian people and standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, even from countries just like the United States of America and the European countries, that those regimes, actually, as you know, that they have been for decades supporting the Israeli occupation. On the other hand, it's not acceptable from Arab countries to support the Israeli occupation or even stand silent towards those crimes. So I think that those countries are urged and highly recommended to revise their stance in these moments while the Palestinian people are slaughtered by the Israeli occupation forces.
Mm-hmm. Quite important. Now, coming to you, Mr. Mustafa, in the same context and the related matter with the normalization with the Zionist entity, will the serving of relations with the Zionist entity be a means of pressure to stop its violation and exactions against Palestinians?
I didn't get your question. Can you say that again? That line.
Will be the serving of relations with the Zionist entity, of course, by the normalizing countries, be used as means of pressure to stop this violation against Palestinians?
Of course, any country that used to normalize the relation with the Israeli government, it's time now to stand up and say this is not going to happen if you're doing this. If you want to live in peace, then you've got to allow people to live in peace. And this is not showing, the Israeli not showing any of this. So you cannot normalize relation with people with their aggression, with their injustice, with their destruction to every. I mean, you're attacking hospital, electricity power. You're doing every illegal thing, and then you ask to normalize the relation. If you normalize relation with government, you will never normalize relation with the people. The people all over the world. I mean, as I said to you yesterday, there is Jewish communities in Europe who don't accept that action. There's Jewish people who go demonstrating with us in Europe against the Zionist action. So how can you normalize relation with people who do not want to do anything normal? You know, it's just not justice. It's not acceptable. Those people go to. I mean, I just can't understand. If they want to live in peace, why do they do that? Why do you get up and do that? You know, why do you go and attack people in their worship place? Imagine that people attacking a synagogue during their worship. What will happen? You know, they will make a meal of it. They will accuse everybody of standing against the Jewish people. You know, they don't miss a chance to make a meal out of anything that happened to them. But on the other hand, you get up and do most outrageous things and accept the people to keep quiet, accept the people to have it as normal? Of course not. And that's why I'm saying the international community, the normal people around the world, got to take their action now, not tomorrow. Things has to, a message got to go clear to the Israeli government that the ordinary people are going mad and complaining and not accepting this aggression against unarmed people.
Mm-hmm. Quite important. Now, let's tackle another point in this discussion. The Palestinian ambassador to Algiers, Faiz Abu Aita, also emphasized the idle stance of the international community towards what is happening in the occupied Palestinian territories. Let's have a listen.
We call on the international community to stop its double standard policy and to stop turning a blind eye to the crimes of the Zionist occupation. Until when the world's hands will remain tied? Until when it will only reject and denounce what the occupation perpetrates?
Now, coming to you, Ms. Khulud, Palestinian children have their childhood stolen from them as well as their most elementary rights. Many of them were arrested and sentenced to prison were barely 11. Where is the international community now? Why this double standards policy compared to the situation in some Western countries?
Because that the Arab states, which keeps diplomatic ties with the Israeli occupation, must immediately sever these ties to save the children's lives, because we suffering here from Israeli occupations in all situations. So that's all.
Mr. Modi, Iran said that the Zionist entity will pay a heavy price for the latest attacks. Can we expect a backing from allied countries now to Palestine?
Let me say that, in my opinion, all scenarios are expected and available amid the increasing and the spiral intention and escalation happening nowadays. The whole fronts are heated by the Israeli occupation forces and over the racist agendas and the racist policies taken by the Israeli current government. So yes, it's highly expected to have any kind of open confrontation with any front surrounding the Israeli occupation, simply because the Israeli occupation cannot be accepted amid the region, and the source of terrorism and the main source of terrorism in the region is the Israeli occupation. And yes, indeed, that the Israeli occupation itself also realizes that any kind of aggression or any kind of attacks against any other country would be faced by another response from those countries to the Israeli occupation. So the main responsible for any kind of escalation in the region is the Israeli occupation. Israel bears the total consequences of any kind of aggression, any kind of any open confrontation with any party or at any front surrounding the occupied Palestinian territories. So it begins only any containing of the situation begins by obliging the Israeli occupation to stop its terrorism, to stop its aggression, to stop its practices and measures taken against the Palestinian people and against the neighbor countries and the neighbor regimes. It all begins and ends at the Israeli occupation, and the court is always the ball is always on the court in the Israeli court, so whenever the Israeli occupation stops its aggression, I think that those countries would never have any kind of response. But unfortunately, the Israeli occupation would never stop its aggression against the Palestinian people simply because the Israeli occupation disrespects everyone who is not Zionist or Israeli settlers. Israel treats the other nations and other people as second-degree people and should be dehumanized and humiliated all the time.
Perfectly understood, Mr. Moti. Coming to you, Mr. Mustafa, now from a foreign point of view, the United States has urged restraint amid the tensions on Thursday, with State Department spokesperson saying that any unilateral action that jeopardizes the status quo to us is unacceptable. What does this warning imply?
As I said, I don't buy to any of this talk unacceptable. Some stronger action is needed. People maybe kick the Israeli ambassador out, or some stronger action could be done. You know, I'm looking at what they're doing and what the reaction of governments is so soft. It's not even giving any warnings to the Israeli government. Talking is cheap. Talking is nothing. Some action. I only believe in action. The Israeli will stop if they see action. But we've been talking to them for years, and nothing happened. They just carry on. They just do what they like. Unless there is some action happening from the Arab countries, and if no action from the other countries, it's the people then. The people power will solve that. The people can do a hell of a lot. I mean, as I said, people around Europe can do a hell of a lot more than the people in the Arab world. And this is something we are discussing now. We're seeing how we can organize demos in France, in England, in Italy, all over Europe. The Egyptian Association got branches all over Europe in cooperation with our Palestinian students and residents in Europe, we can do a hell of a lot, and we can send our voice loud and strong to the Israeli government that this will have some action against their interests. And as I said, if we boycott buying all the products, and if we stop sending tourists into Israel, that will harm them a little, but more stronger action is needed. They will never stop unless there is some action.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mustafa. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, now you are in Gaza. How do you see the situation in Gaza developing in coming days? Do you think that the ceasefire should be limited, or they will reach a mediation as soon as possible?
I don't think that Israeli occupations are currently interested in a long-lasting war in Gaza, but Hamas fighters and other Palestinian factions confirm that they will defend their land and their people.
Quietly understood. You keep focusing on Hamas. Do you think the other factions, Palestinian factions, will join this battle?
All factions are confirmed that they will defend their land and their people, but on the media, Hamas takes all the sides.
So you, as a Palestinian, you strongly believe that Hamas can make the change better than other probably factions?
Hamas and all factions the same. Yeah.
Quietly understood. Coming to you, Mr. Moti, after the cover was unveiled about this extremist Zionist government, the world became fully aware of the ideology of this occupier, who does not respect human rights or worship rights. What is expected today from the international community to data this Zionist violation?
Let's be clear that the international community actually is accomplice totally to the Israeli crimes, and it has the blood of the Palestinian people on its hands. As it keeps silent towards those crimes, the international community is still, till this moment, actually, equates between the executioner and the victim. It equates between the Israeli occupation forces and the Palestinian people, who have nothing to do but to defend themselves. No one can deny the Palestinian people their legitimate right to defend themselves. Thanks to the Ukrainian crisis, it reveals how hypocrite the international community is. From the very beginning, when the Russian forces and the Russian army invaded Ukraine, the whole world and the international community stood on one leg, denouncing the Russian invasion and recommending the Ukrainian people to defend themselves and to resist the Russian invasion and to practice their legitimate right of resistance. But when it comes to the Palestinian people, we hear nothing. We see nothing from the international community. The best thing they can do, and the best thing that the international community can do, is just to denounce any kind of reaction of the Palestinian people while turning a blind eye to the ongoing and the flagrant Israeli crimes committed left, right, and center against the Palestinian people. The international community should realize that any containing of the situation and diffusing any kind of tension begins by enforcing the Israeli occupation to stop its aggression against the Palestinian people. The spontaneous question that we have here is what prevents the international community from having any kind of sanctions against the Israeli occupations, just like what happened with Russia. Russia today is suffering from the ongoing and the relentless sanctions imposed against it from the international community, as it's claimed to support the Ukrainian people and the rights of the Ukrainian people to live and to protect the sovereignty of the Ukrainian people. What prevents the international community of having such a decision when it comes to Israel? This means that they agree with the Israeli occupation when it comes to attacking the Palestinian people. And if they were really concerned about the blood of the Palestinian people, about the basic human rights of the Palestinian people, they would take a serious actions and measures to oblige the Israeli occupation to stop its aggression against the Palestinian people and to respect the basic rights of the Palestinian people. But unfortunately, till this moment, we hear nothing but hollow statements and press release, which is taken just to calm down the situation and contain the situation. But this would never stop the aggression practiced against the Palestinian people, and would never protect the Palestinian people and prevent the Israeli occupation from keeping committing its crimes and killing the Palestinian people.
Thank you ever so much for the points you have raised, the strong points that you have raised. Coming to you, Mr. Mustafa, as a child, I have grown up watching the Zionist entity committing daily crimes in Palestine, not just in Palestine, even in Jordan, Syria, in all places all around the world. But one question comes to my mind. Who is responsible for this? I mean, who can hold them responsible for their actions? Why Zionist entity is special than any other countries? Why they can't hold it responsible as they are trying to do with Russia?
The example our friend raised there is telling you that we live in a world of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the answer to all this. People, when the West and the East are fighting together, then they call in the international community to stand by against the Russian aggression. But when what happened in Palestine day after day, nobody saying nothing. I do not blame the Palestinian people tomorrow if they take the law into their hands and make action. And this happened before. But the Israelis didn't learn their lesson. So I don't blame them tomorrow if they take the law into their hands and take action, because no one is helping them. You find that the Americans are lobbying around the world to get people to support the Ukraine for the war against the Russians. They arming them, they sending experts, they sending money, they sending all the help that they can do because the war is against Russia. But when it's a Palestinian in a mosque praying, worshipping, and those people do the worst crime that could ever be committed, nobody raises his voice. Nobody said we stand by those poor people. Nobody said we support those people. No, the world is silent. This is a shame on the whole world, honestly. And as I said, I don't blame anybody who can take action because nobody else is taking action. You will know hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the word, you know.
I really do understand your words. Mr. Mustafa, as you are saying, this is a shame from the international community. Let's take it part away from this conflict between, or rather this war against Islam, not just against Palestinians, away of the scene. What should the Arab nations do to stand with Palestine in matter of all fields?
Don't make me laugh, because if we wait for the Arab nation to do something, nothing will happen. We've been waiting for years, you know, and nothing happened. Whatever happened, people just look for their own interest. People doing a lot of business with Israel now that should never happen. And the people of these governments should really stand against this. I mean, you have Israeli business all over the Arab world, especially in the Gulf now. The Gulf is being invaded by Israeli businesses. So they being encouraged, not discouraged. The Arab countries, I mean, the Arab people are different than the Arab governments. You need to know that. The Arab people are different than the Arab governments. Most of the Arab people are against this aggression, and they would love to do something and love to see something happen. And as a matter of fact, they are against the government in their soft action. But the people are, you know, limited in their action. But now you have some Israeli embassies in the Arab world. They shouldn't be living in peace there. They shouldn't be working comfortably there. Really, the people can do a lot. And I'm calling on the people to do that because the government is not taking any action.
Perfectly understood. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, so you are in Gaza. Do you expect that the Zionist escalation to expand more in the other Palestinian territories, especially in Al-Quds, which has been a target from the first beginning?
According to my understanding, we are knowing the Israeli reality very well. It seems that Israel is not interested in any escalation, despite the fact that Netanyahu is living in an internal crisis, and the military confrontation may be light of the current crisis he is facing with the Minister of Defense. Israel is not ready. Israel focuses on the West Bank and ending the armed resistance there. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Quite important. Now coming to you, Mr. Muti', Netanyahu's government held a small-scale security meeting at the end, of which the entity's defense minister said that they are ready for all scenarios. Is this an indication of fear of the occupier from the retaliation from the other Palestinian factions, especially Hamas?
Undoubtedly, the Israeli occupation government and all Israeli security, military, and political elites understand that the Palestinian resistance factions in Gaza are able to deter the Israeli occupation and to impose their conditions on the Israeli occupation. So nowadays, the Israeli occupation actually rethink twice before attacking Gaza or before having any kind or making any kind of such decision against Gaza. Today, the Palestinian resistance is much more powerful than ever before, and it can deter the Israeli occupation, and it can actually retaliate. And Israel itself realizes this clearly, simply because the Palestinian people and the Palestinian resistance factions have nothing to lose. Their backs to the wall, especially after 16 years of the ongoing siege and the suffocating siege. The Palestinians today, amid this kind of flagrant aggression and oppression practiced in full view of the whole world, the Palestinian people understand clearly that the only thing and the only choice they have in order to confront this kind of open aggression waged by the Israeli occupation is just to grab on their rifles and to raise their weapon in front of the Israeli occupation. Because the Israeli occupation understands no language but the language of resistance, the language of force. And if the Israeli occupation would understand any language, any peaceful solution, would accept any peaceful solution or the so-called two-state solution, the Palestinian de facto and the Palestinian situation would have been in another situation. So let's face the truth that Israel itself and we as Palestinians and the whole world understand that the Palestinian people would never gain any of their rights but by practicing their legitimate right of self-defense and resistance. And if history actually teaches a lesson, it would be that none of the occupied people and the occupied nation gained their freedom and their liberation without resistance and without the military resistance particularly. So this is the situation, and no one can deny that, and no one can turn a blind eye to this blatant and reality and fact.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly understood. Coming to you, Mr. Mustafa, Jordan's foreign minister said that the Zionist entity is deliberately targeting Palestinian worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque, triggering a wave of anger that paves the way for further escalation. In your opinion, why is Netanyahu, the newly elected again, is putting at risk any hope of political solution?
As I said, or as everyone else said, Netanyahu is just trying to cover the problems he's having internally in Israel by doing this action. Of course, people's attention will be diverted straight away, and Netanyahu will be seen as the hero again who's taking this aggression against the Palestinians, and this is what the Israeli people like to see. So it is to his convenience. What he's doing is to his convenience to help him in the troubled time he is going through. But nobody, I repeat it again and again and again, this will never stop unless the Israeli people see some action. And I'd like to see the old days to come back. I'd like to see operation inside Israel. I'd like to see the people getting up like they have done it so many times. And they were so powerful. I mean, I didn't see the action of the Palestinian government against this. I'd like to know what happened, what they're doing about it. And I don't like to see Hamas shoot some rockets that have no effect on the Israeli territory, and then the Israeli, as an excuse, get up and demolish some towns. This is not what we're looking for. We're looking for some action that make the Israelis suffer, really suffer. This is the only way to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly understood. Coming to you, Ms. Khouloud, now in the same line of thought as what Mr. Mustafa has mentioned, probably these attacks to hide the division happening inside and internal the Jewish government. Now, that here in Algeria, we don't even call it an Israel, we call it just a Zionist entity. We do not recognize that there is a government called Israel. So we do believe that this entity one day, with the support of all other Arab countries, one day it will be vanished. So, sorry to cut your train of thought. I will back to your point. So, do you think, as Mr. Mustafa has mentioned, these Zionist attacks to cover the problems and the division happening now in the internal Jewish state?
Yeah, I agree with him. That's right. The Zionist entity trying to deviate the attention away from its internal instability by attacking Gaza, according to my understanding, and we know very well how the Israel reality and which all factions and Hamas fighters allowed firing rockets at Israel during the past 2 days knows very well that Passover has begun, and Israel is not interested in any escalation in Gaza for fear of first.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly understood. Mr. Mouti, in your opinion, what are the possible scenarios in the next few hours coinciding with, I believe, the Jewish celebrations?
I didn't get the question clearly. Please repeat the question.
I have said, what kind of measures and scenarios that could be happening in the next hours coinciding with the Jewish celebrations?
Yes, as I've mentioned before, that the ball is in the Israeli court, and whenever the Israeli occupation decided to extend its aggression against Gaza, I think this would widen the response of the Palestinian resistance faction, and this would escalate the situation more and more. And indeed, as we all have said and mentioned, that the Israeli occupation fears the total consequences of having such an aggression against the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip mainly. So it's all about the Israeli occupation and how the Israeli occupation is going to deal with this situation. Anyway, according and even or in any situation, the Palestinian people and the Palestinian resistance factions actually in Gaza Strip understand how they should respond and how they would respond in front of the escalating Israeli crimes and the escalating Israeli aggression. And all scenarios are available, but I do believe that Israel now these moments actually rethink and reconsider its choices against Palestine, against Gaza Strip, because I think that the internal front inside the Israeli occupation, taking into consideration and taking into account the dispute and the deep gap between the so-called the opposition and the right-wing government nowadays regarding the so-called reforms and the overhauls of the judiciary system, I think it's not able to sustain any kind of wide aggression and sustain and to endure the response of the Palestinian resistance factions if the Israeli occupation really moved on and ahead to widen its aggression against Gaza. Because today, if the Israeli occupation forces actually increased and widened its aggression against Gaza, the Palestinian resistance faction would widen its response to the Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. So I think these understandings and these considerations are highly considered by the Israeli occupation forces, But generally, I think that when it comes to Netanyahu himself, I think that he has no choice but to run forward, to evade, to avoid the internal dispute and the internal emerging crisis that would end with him in the prison. You know?
I got the point you are trying to deliver. Coming to you, Mr. Mustafa, just when the split happened within the Jewish society and political parties, I have just just come to my mind that Joe Biden, the US president, has mentioned that if Netanyahu keeps going on the same track, he should think twice to get the chance to visit the White House. What kind of statement this represents? I mean, is this another propaganda made by Western allies to Jews and to this entity that shows that they are against them, but at the same time, they are just trying to support them?
No, politicians have been for a long time, or maybe that's how they act. What they say to the public is different from what they say behind curtains. There is deals and agreements happening discreetly, but they will agree that they go publicly and say something. So he will have the approval of the Israeli government of his statement. But this is just a statement to the world. It's not for anybody else. It's a statement for the people to say we're doing something, we're saying something. But in fact, they're not doing anything. The people do agree on what to say to the public and what to hide and what they agree on behind curtains. This has been knowing for years and years and years about politicians. They sit down and make a deal, and before they finish their deal, they agree on what they're going to say to the public and to the press.
Quite understood. Coming to you, Ms. Khulud, now I believe you are most close to the situation over there. I believe, as we can see from the live broadcast we do have and the light events, there is no bombing so far, or is it still occurring?
The situation is difficult now. No, there are the Israeli occupation war plans are shrinking on the Gaza Strip. Also, there is a lot of agriculture shrinking, and including a house that collapsed in eastern Gaza City due to the Israeli occupation's war jets bombing. Right now. Yeah.
Perfectly understood. Mr. Muta, I have just read a statement in my Twitter account that's saying that the bombing has stopped for now. But once our prayers of Al-Fajr will start, this entity, they will start rocking again because they hate what we represent as Muslim. What are you saying about this?
It's pretty known and understood that all this kind of terrorism and all this kind of offensive acts and measures taken against the Palestinian people are stemming from the racist mentality the Israeli occupation has against the Palestinian people. Israel tends at all in all situations to dehumanize the Palestinian people and to attack the Palestinian people because it's all about disrespecting the Palestinian people. They are understanding that the Palestinian people should never have their legitimate rights as normal citizens. And this is the real meaning, and this is actually the real face of the Israeli occupation. This is the real face and the reality of the Israeli occupation that the Israeli propaganda has been working to hide this reality and to try to beautify the image of the Israeli occupation. But this, thanks to this hardline government, this racist government, it revealed the reality of the Israeli occupation in front of the whole world, and the whole world today understands clearly what does the Israeli occupation means, what does the Israeli occupation mean, and what does it mean for the Palestinian people to live under such abhorrent occupation for more than 7 decades. Yes, it's true that Israel leaves no stone unturned without keeping persecuting the Palestinian people, attacking the Palestinian people, depriving the Palestinian people of their legitimate and legal rights as normal citizens and as normal people, as same as any other people worldwide.
Perfectly understood. Thank you so much for the points you have raised, Mr. Mortier. Mr. Mustafa, another video just has been published in my Twitter account. He said that Gaza is being bombed. You can hear them cheering. He's talking about the Jews, citizens over there in the other territories. I mean, this points me to another question to be asked. Is this attack used to unify the Jews again? Because after the split happening, Jews, not only political parties, has been divided, but also inside the citizens and the community. Mr. Mustafa, do you hear me? Mr. Mustafa, do you hear me? Perfect. Now, let's try to switch the question to Ms. Khulud. Ms. Khulud, I believe you do have here the questions, but I will restate it for you. The Jews are now cheering, and they are happy to hear this bombing. Do you believe that this kind of strikes and shelling will unify the entity and the Jewish community?
No, I didn't think so, because the Zionist entity trying to deviate the attention away from its internal instability by attacking Gaza and the war on Gaza. So it seems that Israel is not interested in any escalation. Israel also is not ready at the level of the internal front to enter into any confrontation with Gaza. Israel focuses on the West Bank and ending the armed resistance there, instead of entering into a war with Gaza that ends with a truce and keeps all factions in Gaza Strip, and nothing will change.
Quietly understood. Now, to put an end to the show, coming to you, Mr. Mortier. Now, the Hebrew media are reporting that the bombing has stopped. Now you can calm down everything. Now you are in Gaza, probably you do have a vivid latest. You can tell us probably more about what is happening.
Yes, before I speak about what's happening, let me disagree with what Ms. Khulud has just mentioned, that yes, it has become a matter of fact that when it comes to the Palestinian people and when it comes to the aggression against the Palestinian people, there is a complete consensus among the Israeli occupation components and parties. If there is anything that unites the Israeli occupation components and the Israeli occupation settlers, it would be attacking the Palestinian people. Despite all this kind of deep dispute and gap inside the Israeli community between the so-called Israeli opposition and the current right-wing government, yes, it's true that they are agreed on. They have a wide consensus among them when it comes to attacking the Palestinian people and persecuting the Palestinian people. This is a matter of fact, and no one can deny that. But this is not a guarantor for the Israeli occupation to overcome its internal dispute, to overcome or to come up with a new solution, or to have a solution for its internal dispute and internal situation and internal deadlock and the crisis it has nowadays. This is regarding this topic. Generally, the whole situation, as you know, that it is still. We have still a hot situation here in Gaza. The situation is still tense between the Palestinian resistance factions and the Israeli occupation. From while to another, we hear that several areas and positions in Gaza are targeted by the Israeli airstrikes. But generally, till this moment, it hasn't actually extended or widened. This kind of aggression hasn't extended or widened to cover all Palestinian territories or to be intensified to the extent that the Palestinian resistance faction actually increase their response to and widen the oil spot to include or to target all the central Israeli, the cities inside the Israeli occupation or inside the occupied Palestinian territories.
Very good indeed. Now, to conclude our debate, coming to you, Mr. Khulud, in your interpretation, what kind of measures and steps that should be taken in the coming hours by Hamas, as you have mentioned, and the other Palestinian factions to face this aggression? Is it a direct confrontation should be done right now, or there are kind of other measures and other diplomacy steps that could work to stop this aggression?
Our people in Palestine and all factions here have been always calling on these countries and all institutions and the whole world to take actions and measures against the Israeli occupations, but unfortunately they do nothing to protect us.
Perfectly understood. Coming to you, Mr. Muti', last word to conclude our debate. What can you deliver to the world?
Yes, actually, it's disgraceful for the whole world and the international community to stand silent towards those crimes, toward those crimes practiced by the Israeli occupation today. As long as the Israeli occupation feels immune to any kind of sanction, to any kind of pressure, or to any kind of punishment, it would keep committing the crimes and perpetrating the crimes against the Palestinian people, which makes them and the international community and those countries actually accomplice to those crimes, and they have the blood of the Palestinian people on their hands. This is on one hand. On the other hand, the Palestinian people would never give up and would never raise the white flag and would never accept, and the Palestinian resistance factions would never accept for their hands to be twisted by the Israeli occupation or by any other country. And the Palestinian people, actually, even if they stand alone in confrontation or in the face of the Israeli occupation, they would keep practicing their legitimate right of self-defense, because this is the only choice and the only thing they have in front of the brutality of the notorious Israeli occupation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muti' Abu Misbah. You joined me live from Gaza, Palestine. You are a media activist, and Mrs. Khulud Khattab Fawqai, a Palestinian activist and journalist also from Gaza. Thank you ever so much for taking part with us. Also, my thanks conclude to Mr. Mustafa Rajab, who was with us from London. Now, to conclude the show, all I can say, thank you so much for being with us. And this is another Ramadan and another year that we are witnessing these targets, this shelling on Palestinians and on Al-Aqsa. So, don't share images, don't share videos, but we should take actions. This is the word, that's all I can say. Thank you so much. Take care.